Welcome all to this tutorial. Today I am making an addition to the course, and there has been a lot of demands for a lot of different things. I will keep on adding them as time keeps passing by. This is a progressive course, so the content just keeps getting added as long as there is demand for it. Now, in this particular edition, I have decided to show you or to teach you more about keyloggers. So here I will show you how you yourselves can make a keylogger which will record keystrokes elsewhere, and then later on we will get into the deployment techniques for a keylogger. I already demonstrated some of the deployment techniques in the previous tutorials for that are general purpose, but these things will be very specific to a keylogger, even though they can easily be adapted to other malicious pieces of code. Anyway, what I want to address here is the fact that we will start to do some really advanced things here, and you're going to probably encounter a lot of errors, a lot of problems along the way. So that's natural, especially because we're moving into more advanced stuff, primarily because you yourselves are going to be making a keylogger. Several things to take into consideration, so several prerequisites that we need to keep in mind. And before I move on any further, let me just say that we're not going to actually do anything technical in this tutorial. Here, I'll just talk a little bit about what we will need, what will our setup be, and for what environment is this particular keylogger meant for. So I have decided to create a keylogger for a Windows PC. So it won't matter that much which version of Windows are you running. So it can be pretty much a 7, 8, 8.1, or even 10 if you have it. Doesn't really matter. But we will be creating a keylogger for a Windows PC. Why have I decided to create a keylogger that will work on Windows? Well, let's face it, most of the desktop users will be using Windows. And deploying a keylogger on a Windows or a Mac is significantly more difficult. So we might get into that later on in the course. But for the time being, I want to show you how you can make a keylogger that you can infect a Windows PC with. So here are some of the things that we will need. First of all, we will need a virtual machine of Windows. I know that there are a lot of Mac users that are attending my course. You don't have to buy a Windows or anything of a kind. You can just go over to the Microsoft website. You do need to register, and then you can get 1 to 3 months trial period. 3 months is more than you really need. So 90 days is more than you really need to finish this up, to finish this, to follow through this tutorial. I am not encouraging piracy or anything like that, so, but because you can get like a 90-day free trial, so there is no need to download it from the torrents or anything of a kind, even though you can get cracked versions on torrents. I wouldn't recommend them. Why? Well, you really don't know what somebody has embedded into those systems. Somebody could have altered them to serve a malicious purpose when you install them onto your system or something of a kind. Therefore, I really, really, really wouldn't recommend doing that. And there really isn't a need. You can just go over to the Microsoft website, register, and download pretty much any Windows you would like. I would recommend that it be at least 7 and above. You shouldn't really download anything below 7, as I mean, some people still use Vista, a lot of people still use XP, contrary to popular belief that it's extinct. But I wouldn't recommend downloading those systems. Just go ahead and download 7 and above. So if you can get 8.1, and you can, it's free. You can get the Windows itself is not free. You would have to pay for a permanent license, but for a trial period, anybody can download and evaluate. Anyway, I have also opted not to demonstrate how you can download a Windows and install it into your VirtualBox. Why? Well, all you need to do is go to a Windows website, to a Microsoft Windows website, and download it from there. It's pretty simple. If you encounter any problems or difficulties there, just let me know. I will design a tutorial specifically for that. I can do that quite fast, but I don't think that there is a need. Pretty much most of the student pool uses Windows, so you already installed it once, I guess, and you should know how to do it by now. If you don't, it's okay. Just let me know in the discussions, send me a PM or something of a kind, and I will create an additional tutorial for that. The procedure for installation within VirtualBox is exactly the same as for any other system that we have installed thus far into VirtualBox. There is literally no difference. You just download it and install it into VirtualBox like before. So all these things I have already showed for other operating systems. There are no significant differences for Windows. It's pretty much the same. But as I said, if you don't succeed, if you find it very difficult or very challenging, just let me know and I will do a specific demonstration here. One more thing that I would like to address before I continue on that is not really related to this subject is the discussion section and the private messages. So I would advise everybody who is watching this tutorial by this point of time, if you came this far into the course, to post your questions in the public discussions. So if a solution is found to your problem, if I manage to solve it, so that everybody can see it. Regardless of that, if you send me a PM, I will help you out either way. So whether it's a PM or whether it's in public discussions, I will help you either way. So no worries there. But if you could, it would be very nice if you could place all your problems in the discussion section where they are visible to all and accessible by all. Also, there are a lot of discussions. I get on average 25 inquiries in 12 hours, so that's a lot. If I by some chance miss one or something like that, just go ahead and send me a PM and a link to that discussion and say, hey, you forgot about me. What about my problem? And I will address it immediately. I am really sorry. I generally don't do this. I think I've answered like 95% of the questions out there, but there are those 5% always that I miss somewhere in the fray, or these 1% that perhaps I'm not able to solve or something of a kind. But as I said, if you don't get an answer within 12 or 24, up to 24 hours, usually it's within 12. If you don't get it up to 24, just send me a private message and I will address your problem immediately. Anyway, enough about that. So, go ahead, before we go into the next tutorial, I would advise you to install a virtual machine of Windows. If you already have Windows running on your physical machine, there is no strict requirement that you should install a VM, but you still should do it. It's recommended that you do it because we're going to be running a lot of code, and in the later tutorials we'll also be running some destructive code that you really don't want to run on your main system. Rather, instead, you want to mess up your VM, and you can reinstall it easily if you can't fix the problem. So that would be it as far as that is concerned. Now on to the requirements. So as I said, you need a Windows. Continuing with the requirements, actually, the Windows. Aside from that, we will need to go ahead and download an IDE, which is an integrated development environment, a place where we will do the code, where we will do the coding, where we will create our own keylogger. And aside from that, we will also need a compiler, something to actually compile the code to create something that a machine can understand from what we type in, from what we as the user can understand. And that would be it. So basically Windows, IDE, and a compiler. Those three things we're going to need for an IDE. I have chosen to use Eclipse. I will show you how to install it, set it up, and all of that in the later tutorial. But it will have some requirements. So you will need to download stuff from Java, which I will also show and demonstrate. No worries there, but it's all free, so you won't need to pay for anything there. No additional costs at all. The programming language that I have chosen to use is C++ because most of the code for Windows is written in C++. On top of that, C++ has the lowest amount of dependencies. For example, if you are going to run a Java code, you need Java running in the background. So if somebody doesn't have a Java runtime environment, as it is called, running on their Windows PCs, Java code will not work. Java is also a programming language, like C++ is a programming language. If you use some other programming languages like Python, again, on Windows, you're going to have a lot of dependencies. So pretty much whatever you use, aside from maybe C Sharp and C++ and C, you will have a ton load of dependencies which you're going to need to worry about because you do not know what is installed on somebody else's PC. You need to create something that will universally work on pretty much all the PCs that are running the Windows environment, regardless of what they have installed on that particular PC within their operating system. That is one of the main reasons why I've chosen C++. And usually, hacking code and stuff like that, it's either a scripting language for something simple, or for some complex work like a keylogger, it's C or C++. For example, if we used C, that would be primarily in the Linux domain, as Linux is mostly written in C. Linux is written in C, not mostly. Let's put it so. Anyway, C++ can be tedious, can be difficult to learn, its syntax can be complex, and don't give up immediately. Just follow through the tutorials. I won't skip any steps. I will show you how it is done one step at a time with no steps skipped. And you will be able to see each line of the code as you make it, and each line of the code will be explained so you will have understanding of it. But before we can actually get into writing a keylogger, we will set up the environment, and I do need to first of all introduce you to some basic things about C++. So I will introduce you to C++, we will go over some of the basic things there, and then we will move on to the more advanced things through the process of creating a keylogger, so learn by doing. However, I would also advise you to use external material, such as you have a lot of videos on C++ subject on YouTube. So if you want, you can expand your knowledge there and take a look at some additional things. You have the discussions. You don't necessarily need to ask me if you have a problem. If you don't understand something, go ahead and ask. I'll be happy to help you out in any way I can. Anyway, that is what is waiting for us here. So you will learn how to make a keylogger for yourselves, and hopefully you will be able to modify it any way you like. This keylogger will be, it's not going to be a professional one or something like that, but it will be able to serve the purpose that we need it to serve. Furthermore, writing custom code as opposed to just downloading a keylogger from the net does have tremendous advantages, primarily because antivirus detection. One of the ways to avoid antivirus detection is to write custom code as simple as possible and have it for yourself. And if nobody else has it, then the security companies that make antivirus programs will not know about it. And even though they have some general detection methods, they will not have any specific detection methods for your piece of code. So keep that in mind. If you download any of the keyloggers from the net, especially if they're closed source, you have no idea what you're downloading. I mean, even if you buy one, again, it's a company, okay, so they shouldn't mess around with such things, but you still have no idea what you are downloading. You have to be really, really, really careful with that. On the other hand, if you make it yourselves, you know exactly what is in there, you know exactly what it does, you have full understanding of it, and a lot of people have asked me to show you a lot of advanced stuff, a lot of advanced things, and I've decided to begin with that. The first tutorial from this, from the series of advanced pen testing, let's call it so, will be how to make your own keylogger, and then later on we will go into some other more interesting stuff, so to say. However, until next tutorial, I bid you all farewell, and I wish you a ton load of luck with this.